that aren't getting the water that they have entitlements to, and so we may be changing some facilities to do that. But we are working with the regional board, which again is one of our sister agencies. We've also attempted to contact and deal with the U.S. Army Corps on some of these issues and see if there's some nationwide exemption criteria that maybe perhaps could be applied to these types of projects. We have not been very successful with that. But we are looking at various methods to streamline the process if at all possible.
Okay. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board member that got this on our agenda for expedited review, I want to thank you for being here, and I appreciate all of your patience and time, and I think you are trying to give comprehensive responses to questions in real time, so I really appreciate that. To Ms. Pauley's last question, I think that this is really a critical one for Mendocino County, the storage issue, because we all know that there's plenty of water in Mendocino County, but we don't have the storage capability for it. So if that's something that you could focus on, and I would like you to get us, if you could, some specifics on what you're doing and exactly how you are trying to expedite that. What are the real things that you're doing? What are the tangible things that you're doing? Because I think that the storage issue has been one of long standing here, and I think the board would appreciate and the public would appreciate what are the things that you're actually doing, where are the things we could assist you, where are the things that the legislature could assist you, assistance with dealing with the Army Corps, whatever the issues are. I think a dialogue with you on that issue would be really a critical one, because storage is something that we continue to grapple with, as do private landowners. So I think that hopefully is an encouraging bit of news. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up comment to that a little bit is the regional board and their staff, we've been working internally primarily to do that. They've expressed concern that they, perceive some of these projects that may have to move to off-stream storage, create some regulatory problems for them as well as for us. Some of them is the Clean Water Act and the application of that, and is there I want to say a universal permit that could be applied to these, and which everybody would know up front what the terms and conditions are. Those are things that we're exploring, but it's very early in that process. Secondly, I think that any help that we can get with the process and procedures, we're still early in that formulation, and coordination with other agencies is a common complaint and I guess restriction in the process, and we're always attempting to improve that, much as why we're here today in a way is to, with maybe the bearer of bad news in some respects, but it's important for all of us to share our understanding and knowledge of it, and we'd like to continue that. Will we afford an open dialogue with the public in this process? Certainly, but it's still so early in that process, I'd say not yet. And we're also experiencing pretty good turnover in Region 1 staff, so our regional board staff. So we're working with trying to bring them up to date with water rights as well.
Thank you. Mr. Piffero, followed by Ms. Faulkner.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm Rick Piffero. I'm one of the applicants. I have 2 permits pending over there. I did get permits to build a pond, and I don't have the permits to, I guess, store the water. But if I had waited to get the permit to store the water, I wouldn't have the proper use of my land to develop it. I'd wait, but the one lady who was here since '74 doesn't have a permit. It's a taking to me. I can't use my land to the best development. Another comment is, have you considered the flood control? We have the Lake Mendocino was built originally was for flood control. If you take out these stock ponds now, which help during the high flows in the winter, they store that water that's not going directly to the river. If all that water goes directly to the river, we're going to have a major flooding problem. Because once those ponds are full during high flows, they just flow right through the spillway, they go right through it, and then we use it. We start using it about now during frost season is when we start using it. There's plenty of water that comes through this county for everybody that we can help with the stream flows. I know the fish is probably depleted because I think the population has increased in California, and, that has a lot to do with the diminishing of the fish. But why can't they build more Lake Mendocinos in places? I know it's gonna be some, environmental damage when you do that, but if you build some of these bigger, lakes and then have them release into these streams to keep your flow at your regulated rate, just have them designed for that. There's plenty of water for everybody. I don't know why we're arguing with the fisheries against the farmer. Doesn't make any sense. I know it's, everybody's against these dams, but they're beneficial, as the one gentleman said. So I think we need to look at developing more water storage, like you said, instead of putting it, you're going to put us farmers out of business up here. We're not making what Napa makes right now, and we're having a tough time making it. You start putting out these development fees. I know I've got over $100,000 out in 2 permits now, and I got a long ways to go. And I like to farm, but we're putting it to the point where we can't. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pifro.
Just a couple of comments that, in our intent and a little bit understanding the things is, and I forgot who actually coined the phrase, but there was a while back someone said, well, if your television's floating down the stream, there must be water available for appropriation, in which the policy and the guidelines essentially says that. In the wintertime, go get the water, but don't build an on-stream dam, build it off-stream. The economics of that is you're going to lose the footprint in many cases of viable ag land, or, there are economics associated with that. But the intent was to say, there is water here, but it's the seasonal question, and much like major reservoirs do just that. They store winter high flows and release it during low flow periods in the summer for various diversion and use. But also, many of these watersheds, if you were to look up a map of all of the known diverters on some of these watersheds, I think it'd be very easy to come to the conclusion, it's like, oh my goodness, there's not much left. It's developed. So the other question comes to mind, when is enough's enough? And it may not be environmental issues. It may be folks that are fighting amongst themselves over who gets the water and when. And in some cases, these watersheds, I think we're already there. It's just that many of these diverters have not maximized their use of water yet. And when they go to the full face value of some of these permits and licenses, I think we will have people arguing amongst not the environmental flows, but whose water is it? Is it mine? Is it yours? It's a neighbor? And then the last comment is that the water belongs to the state of California. It belongs to the people of the state of California, and all we're approving is the diversion and use of water. It's not a property right. It's an ownership by the people of California. And the diversion and use under the limitations and requirements we have under the statutes, protection of the environment, protection of other people's water rights, and regulation, that's the job of the State Water Board. Not an easy one.
Thank you. Supervisor?
Mr. Herrera, if it's the people's water, then let the people pay for the improvements and the changes. Don't put it on the landowner. It's not our responsibility to provide the water that falls on our land, to put in all the hundreds of thousands of dollars to go through the process in order to provide the people their water. That's the problem that I have with that.
Okay.
And to think that there's plenty of water out there, we can just divert it during those 6 days, in the example that was given, 6 days, that's not going to cut it.
Well, without going into the details of the 6 days, so these are very high in the watershed, and in many cases, there's not much water there anyway. This is 1.5 square miles. It's not the size of the property, the ownership property. You could have a 10-acre parcel in the valley floor in the Alexander Valley or any of these places. There's probably a lot of water going by the stream channel, but sitting on the top end of these watersheds, they don't produce much, and therefore any minimum bypass flow of any size is going to reduce the time frame in which they can divert water. And it may not be, just like I said, environmental concerns. It may be the guy down